Welcome back to my class. I told us in the next class we'll be looking at lipid disorders. So before we talk about lipid disorders, one thing we should take note is that lipid disorder is not the same thing as lipoprotein disorders. Now, either the lipid disorder can be hypolipidemia or hyperlipidemia. So hypo when the lipid contents are low, hyper when they are high. Now follow me. Lipoprotein disorders must be initially classified broadly into, we say, hyperlipidemia and hypolipidemia, which means high lipid levels or low lipid levels respectively. Each of these broad categories may further be classified again into primary, which are genetic. Some are genetic causes as primary causes, or secondary, which are environmental causes. So we have the hereditary and the what and the secondary causes, which are what environmental, e.g. that of secondary: substance abuse, medication use, lifestyle habits, or underlying diseases. Now the secondary causes of lipid disorders are more common than the primary cause. They are more common and thus must be ruled out before exploring the primary causes of dyslipidemia. Now, the primary dyslipidemias are generally consistent in the way they affect the lipoproteins. Hyperlipoproteinemias generally cause elevations in the affected lipids or lipoproteins, and hypolipoproteinemias also cause reductions in the affected lipids or what? Or lipoproteins. Now, secondary dyslipidemia, which is said can be environmental, on the other hand, may cause elevations in some, not all now, in some lipoproteins, may cause increase in some and cause reduction in others. An example of this is lipid profile. The normal lipid profile we do in the lab, yes, to check if somebody has issues concerning his lipids or lipoproteins, yes. So that lipid profile now in patients with diabetes now, for example, which commonly reveals a dyslipidemic triad consisting of elevated LDL and triglycerides with a concurrent reduction in HDL. You see it? So some will be high, some will be low. Now in this case, diabetes mellitus and metabolic syndrome would be widely considered a hyperlipidemic disease due to the array of what? Cardiovascular and cerebrovascular issues that arise consequent to the chronic hyperlipidemia association with the disease associated with the disease. This to say that in cases of mixed, where we have elevated and decreased, like the one we talked about just now, findings on the lipid profile, it must be evaluated to be sure that the secondary causes of the dyslipidemia have been ruled out and they are managed effectively, and the affected lipoproteins treated accordingly. Yes. So when lipid profile result comes out like this, you look at it. How is the high density lipoprotein like? How is the low density lipoprotein like? How is total cholesterol like? So from there, you look at which one is okay and which one is not okay, so that the one that is not okay will be effectively managed accordingly. So we have different types of lipoprotein disorders. We will mention them and we'll just move on. So we told us it can be genetic or environmental. So under the genetic, we have the familial hypercholesterolemia. It's an autosomal disease. Is there? So we also have the fatty acid oxidation defects. Now this one, during prolonged starvation, metabolism of fats, of course, we know are stored in what? Adipose tissue, which is needed for energy production. Now, after glycogen stores, we told us about glycogen having a storage in the liver. So whenever the body needs glucose and the person is not eating, or for example, the body goes back to convert the glycogen to what? Glucose. Now, after the glycogen stores have been depleted, both gluconeogenesis, which is the building up of glucose, and the production of ketone bodies by liver fatty acid beta oxidation are essential for providing energy for the brain. The oxidation of fatty acids now for energy occurs in the mitochondria of liver cells and requires a carrier molecule which is known as a carnitine, which is synthesized in the body and is also obtained from the dietary intake of animal products such as the meat, your milk, your eggs. Now, some fatty acid oxidation disorders arise through what? Dysfunction of carnitine. Remember I said carnitine is what? It's a carrier molecule. The oxidation of fatty acids for energy now occurs in the what? Mitochondria of liver cells and requires a carrier molecule. So when fatty acid, for example, oxidize to produce energy, without carnitine, they cannot be carried. So carnitine is a carrier molecule, which is synthesized in the body and is also obtained from the what? Dietary intake of animal products. So we quickly move to the next one. We have mitochondrial disorders because some of these fatty acids are stored in the mitochondria. Mitochondrial disorders. We have the mitochondrial respiratory train consists of 5 multi-subunit protein complexes that produce the majority of energy, which are energy driving cellular reactions. Now, dysfunction of the respiratory chain leads to decreased energy production and leads to an increase in the production of toxic reactive oxygen species. In addition, damaged mitochondria release apoptotic factors. These are factors that are capable of causing cell death. Respiratory chain proteins are formed by the concerted action of what? Both the nuclear and the mitochondrial genes. Therefore, mitochondrial disorders may be inherited in either a Mendelian pattern or it can be maternal fashion, which is in the mitochondria, because mutations may occur in either the nuclear or the mitochondrial genome. Okay, so we'll move on. We will now look at lysosomal storage diseases, lysosomes. Lysosomes are cytoplasmic organelles in which a variety of macromolecules are what? Degraded by different acid hydrolase enzymes. Lysosomal enzymes are coded by nuclear DNA and are targeted to lysosomes by specific recognition markers. Now, if a lysosomal enzyme is absent or has reduced activity, or if enzymes are not currently targeted to lysosomes, for example, the macromolecules normally degraded by lysosomes will accumulate, causing abnormal storage of various complex compounds, including your glycolipids, your glucose aminoglycans, oligosaccharides, and your glycoproteins. So we are mentioning the lipid disorders. We also have the peroxisomal disorders. Peroxisomes are cytoplasmic organelles that play a central role in the catabolism of very long chain fatty acids and other compounds through the process of beta oxidation. They also are critical in the biosynthesis of important cellular membrane constituents, cholesterol, and bile acids. So I think